Is failure in the supply chain and material management issues driving delays and cost overruns in your construction business? McKinsey estimates that an average construction project is 80% over budget and 20 months behind schedule. Digital solutions exist and can help contractors with projects, profits, and their people. More time on job site leaves workers more exposed to risk. Safety and productivity don't have to be compromised. Joining us today on Dave Cooper Live is Robert J. Salvador, CEO of DigiBuild, who just announced a $4 million seed round with investors Y Combinator, Draper Associates, Harvard University, Picus Capital, Bluefield Capital, Cathexis Ventures, MH Carnegie, YC Alum Fund, Emerging Ventures, Chain Reaction, and more. I say that list because that shows there's a lot of interest in our space and they're willing to invest. Why the significant interest from construction incumbents and new entrants in a construction technology company like DigiBuild? Join us to find out what DigiBuild is doing to improve the largest and oldest unchanged industry in the world. But before we get into that, we have to thank our sponsors. So a big shout out to Forward Solutions Group for allowing us to deliver these examples of construction innovation. Forward Solutions Group is successfully driving companies to succeed where others have failed. Learn more about their recent acquisition of Moducore, an ERP solution for offsite manufacturing. Contact Ben Hershey to learn more. Ben at forwardsolutionsgroup.com. And Howick Ltd. is another awesome sponsor that we just had a trip to London with. Howick Ltd. has a long history of innovation in cold form steel manufacturing and produces innovative precision roll forming technology for customers throughout the U.S. and the world. You want to check out their Machines Buyer's Guide for offsite modular construction or fast build construction with light steel for framing. Check out their website, howickltd.com. All right, so without further ado, it's about time we hop into this, and let's bring Robert into the show. Robert, how you doing, my friend?
Hey, Dave. It's great to see you again. I am doing wonderful. Sounds like you are too, and excited to get into things for round two. Nice to see you.
Yeah, well, listen, it's awesome having you back. I want to thank you, obviously for reaching out, letting us know that you got some more seed money. I mean, the list of people, when you look at the names on that list that have decided to invest in you, in your team at DigiBuild and invest in blockchain, says a lot.
Yeah, we're fortunate to be in a space, just like you said in your intro, that is one of the largest and oldest in the world, the construction market. And you're seeing a lot more investment and venture capital, venture funds in general in the space. And I think that's very necessary. There's so many workflows that are causing pain points for construction companies and whatnot. And, many of them just have not been digitized. So there's a huge opportunity. It's great to see a lot of the, what many would consider top tier venture funds from kind of the regular world moving into the construction technology world. So yeah, we're really fortunate, happy to be here and happy to continue our mission of improving construction projects, profits, and people.
So let's talk about a quick overview, Robert. Since you were last on the show and you guys were just ramping up with DigiBuild, you were just on the Drapers, you got your first round of funding. Now you're on your second round of funding that has come through. Why don't you tell us a little bit about DigiBuild, what you're about, and then we'll get into fixing the supply chain and how your solution is actually helping to do that. Go ahead. You got 2 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, growing up in the industry, I dealt with a lot of the pain points directly, pushing manual paperwork and just doing so many things that take time away from already overwhelmed project teams. So throughout the years, I just saw workflow after workflow, whether it be contracts or payments or supply chain material management, that were just done in an inefficient way. And in construction, where we're just so desperate to improve our margins and, have more successful projects than, like you mentioned, 80% of these finishing late or over budget, it just made sense to start building out digital solutions. And we also utilize a new innovative technology, blockchain technology, sometimes called Web3, that really is a perfect tech stack for what we do in construction, which is you have a bunch of different companies who don't trust one another, but they have to do business together. They have to share important workflows and data, between general contractors, subcontractors, suppliers. So it makes sense to have a common data environment for all of them to utilize. And when it is a tool that all of them can trust and benefits their companies directly, that's where you see, both improvements in the companies and the profits, as we say, as well as the projects as well. And then both of those lead to happier, better people, in our opinion. So that's where the profits, projects, people comes from.
Let me simplify this for people. So basically, using your technology, using your system brings transparency across the whole supply chain of paperwork that's being processed. So there's no more finger pointing. You will know exactly who did what, when they did it, because I believe there's 70, 80,000 documents typically on a large project.
You add one more zero and you're right there. 700,000 documents on large projects. And many of them, like you said, are siloed between different stakeholders. The GC has some of them. The owner has some of them. The architect has some of them. So exactly, this gives that single source of truth. And then when you can trust those other companies you're working with, it allows you to do a lot more in the way of automation. How many times in our industry am I filling out a piece of paperwork as a contractor, then a supplier has to fill out a similar piece of paperwork, or your architect? And again, that's just a form of building trust. So using solutions like DigiBuild, we can really start to take some of that burden off of our already overburdened project team. So there's a lot of benefits that happen when you have a common data environment and trust between these companies who have to work together on construction projects.
Yeah, and we've been talking about this is the future of construction, no matter how we look at it, whether it's a system like yours or others. It's that owning the process from the very beginning to the very end, and having one source of information for people to look at and to work from. So the information is always up to date. If something's missed, you know exactly who missed it. There's no finger pointing, and you have a smoother job and bigger profits because of it.
Yeah. And, one of the things that you see challenges within construction is because there's so many different stakeholders, you get a lot of them being like, oh, well, that's the subcontractor's problem. That's not my problem. Or that's the architect's problem. That's not my problem. But because our industry is so interconnected and there's so many dependencies on these workflows, a workflow that a subcontractor touches, like I said, is probably touched by a general contractor as well. So that's one of the things that really helps, is when we can get those other stakeholders in a single platform. It just drives efficiency, drives automation. There's a reason cars are produced on an assembly line, not in 500 different locations across the country, right? Same thing with our construction workflows and our data.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. All right, so let's talk about this a little bit. Fixing the supply chain. So we understand that you have a process that goes end to end on the paperwork trail and who owns what. How is it actually helping to fix the supply chain pain that we're all feeling across the industry and across the world, really?
Yeah. So, the workflow of supply chain and material management in construction, like many of the other workflows, and kind of like I just said, has all these different dependencies and stakeholders involved. So first and foremost, just trying to manage and procure your material on a project is becoming something that adds a significant amount of cost and risk. And again, it's not just to your company, it's to you as the GC, it's to me as the subcontractor, it's to the owner if their cabinets don't show up for 6 months and it pushes their job. So basically, you've got all these different companies that get involved. They're doing things like finding their material, and there's paperwork and workflows involved in that. Ordering their material, getting the right material there, things like the submittals, the MSDS sheets. Then you get to managing your material, which is making sure you have the correct quantities, making sure your supplier's charging you the right amount. Then you get to predicting your material. Then you get to tracking the material to the job. So the point is, there's all these different workflows, and like many other applications out there, it just makes more sense to use a software to help you manage them and save both time and risk.
Agreed. So what does the future outlook of construction supply chain and material procurement look like from your eyes?
So right now it's tough. We dealt with, before COVID, supply chain material management was a problem. We got with 50 of the biggest contractors out there in 2019. And even back then, they told us supply chain was their biggest issue. Now, since December of 2020, material pricing across the board is up 20%, and material lead times across the board are up 50%. And you're still seeing events that are going to negatively affect the supply chain. China keeps shutting down. We're still having major issues at our ports. Obviously, inflation is running rampant. Fuel costs are at a level never seen before. So in the short term, supply chain and material availability and material procurement is not going to get any better. I actually came across this article the other day that talks kind of about what the state of things looks like. Copper, the inventory is contracting, deliveries are delayed. Drywall, inventory contracting, deliveries delayed. Electrical equipment, glass, HVAC, plumbing fixtures. So I would say in the short term, it's definitely a challenge for the industry. But if you put proper processes in place, which includes things like, utilizing software, you can definitely start to manage some of the pain and reduce some of the pain that goes along with what we're seeing in supply chain and material management issues right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally across the board on everything, to include pickup trucks.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's
right.
Getting the material there, the gas to get it there. It's top to bottom. And because construction is so interconnected, it's having a domino effect across the industry, to your point, even things like trucks.
That's right. And computer chips and everything else. So how is the building material procurement affecting contractors and the projects? And we're asking these questions because we're gonna lead into where your solution's really helping to pick up on all of these different things. But how is it affecting people procurement side of this, getting the products that they need?
Yeah, well, much like after the 2008 global financial crisis, it took, couple of years to really start to see the downstream effects of, all that negative activity in the economy. I think you're starting to see it now. So starting with the owner, you're having owners who are delaying projects or even canceling projects because the pricing they got a year ago is literally 40% higher, right? Yeah. And, when you're talking a $50 million, $100 million building, you're talking, generational wealth. So owners are experiencing it, and then it flows down to the general contractors and subcontractors. Projects that continue, now it's building up all these problems of, hey, I have a cost increase. Who's going to help me with it? And then you look at kind of parallel to that, you look at the availability problem. Things like drywall are more expensive, less available. Some things like, cabinets and, certain type of fixtures and whatnot, you're looking at lead times that used to be 4 to 6 weeks. Now you're talking 8 months. So the effects to project schedules are immense. And again, that has more downstream effects. I delay the GC's project 8 months as a sub. Now, all of a sudden, I'm looking at liquidated damages. But now I'm going to say, no, I'm going to file a lien because you got to pay me for those extra materials. I can't afford it. So again, it's having a domino effect, and it's really causing, both cost, schedule, and risk burdens for many of the different stakeholders involved in these projects.
Yeah, for sure. All right, everybody, listen, if you're just joining us, we are talking with Robert Salvador, CEO of DigiBuild, and we are live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter. So get your tweets on. And if you're not following DigiBuild and you're not following Robert and what their team's doing and watching how they're going to spend $4 million that they just attained, you're wrong. You need to get out there and start watching them. So hit that like and share button, and please, let's spread the word. These are people that are doing it better. This is what the whole show is about. How are we moving forward as an industry? We can't keep doing things the way we've been doing it. It's got to change at this point. And I think the housing crisis has proven that across the globe. All right, let's keep rocking and rolling, Robert. So let's talk about, moving the supply chain forward. How do we improve? How do we improve the supply chain points? How do we improve the software, the hardware, and delivery solutions? Because it doesn't appear to me that this is going away anytime soon.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Like I said, it's hard to fix your supply chain that was wrecked when it's still getting wrecked, right? You can't even start fixing the building until it's done burning down. And right now the supply chains are still kind of burning down. So one of the things that we do at DigiBuild, providing supply chain material management software, is just drive more consistency within these processes. a lot of the bleed in cost and labor hours and even bad decision making comes from not having consistent data and access to that data, or doing things differently from time to time. So just utilizing a software to help you have your single source of truth for your material quantities, the pricing you've gotten from suppliers, how long your quotes are good for, where your material's at, can have direct impacts on your company just in the way of cost savings and risk management and schedule. And so one of the things that, that we're seeing is certain companies are losing, call a mid or large general contractor, they're losing over $700,000 per year just in labor inefficiencies by someone in their procurement office or a project manager needing to push paperwork, sign purchase orders, manually get these pricing or get these quotes. We pretty much do a lot of that for you in a circumstance or situation that we like to call automated procurement. So when you do that, one, it directly saves money, on your labor hours. Two, it can get you better material pricing. Three, it gives you that consistent source of information for where your material's at, what are the quantities that you have for this particular project. And then four, it helps you get things to the job on schedule. Material pricing and availability is literally changing by the day. So having a software that kind of acts as a digital project manager for your team takes that burden off of them. And again, as we like to say, we can save labor hours, get you better material pricing, reduce those scheduling delays, and overall make the material management on projects more effective and efficient.
So, and by doing that, even with the rising costs, you're helping them save money by adding those processes in place. And I think that's what everybody has to understand. So the solution is more than just the procurement side and the digitization of it. It's the man hours that it takes to do this stuff. It's the time that it takes to do this stuff, because the rising costs aren't going away. So with that said, this is, we're going to hop into this, what DigiBuild is doing to help reduce the risk of all of this. And I think that's kind of what you're leading on. And I know we have a bit of a slideshow too. So whenever you want to do that, I think Jen will load it up for us and we'll hop into it.
Yeah, no, I think now's a great time because we're kind of talking specifics and the pain points and what happens. So yeah, that would be great. And just to add on to what you said, talking about our people being too busy and, not being able to manage these things. An example is a flooring contractor we're working with in Florida. They had 3 people in their procurement department who all day, all night just had to manage those materials. They had to not just manage materials on projects, also manage their bids, manage, the quotes they've got from their lower tier suppliers. And they were able to take that department using DigiBuild down from 3 people to 1 person. And those other 2 staff members have went out and they're now managing projects, which obviously they, had a shortage of. So to your point, these type of systems, whether it's a Procore for general construction management or a DigiBuild for material management, it allows your team to do more with less in a more effective way.
So again, this is what I love about this. And as I think this through and what you just said, how do you do more with less people, right? We're not getting the workforce back. We're not getting the labor back anytime soon. And we've kind of been preaching this in the long run. How do we make the people that we already have that much better, that much more streamlined without burdening them? You're not putting a big burden on them for more work or any of that stuff. It's just a matter of how do you get the productivity you still need with less people?
Yeah. And, so I just spoke to a good friend of mine who's a senior project manager out in Scottsdale or the Arizona area, and they're doing some massive data centers. He works for an ENR 400 general contractor. And he made a great point. He goes, yeah, the labor shortage is real in the field, no doubt, with our, blue collar workers, things like that. But he goes, one of the things people are not paying enough attention to is how bad the labor crisis is in the office. We don't have enough project managers. We don't have enough procurement managers. He made an example of one of the project team he's working with was an administrator who is now running work as a project manager because that was the only option. So to your point, these type of tools allow you to do more with less.
Absolutely. All right, we got that slide deck loaded. I'm going to put it up here for you. Sure. So,
yeah. So, right here, just looking at some of the main pain points that we tell companies about. So right now, 70% of all projects finish late or over budget. The number one most consistent reason for that is supply chain and procurement issues. Now, we know there's a lot of issues in construction, right? Especially, the labor crunch right now, many different things. But the number one most consistent reason are those material management procurement issues. That third bullet right there, which I mentioned earlier, we're just bleeding money everywhere. 170 billion per year lost due to management inefficiencies, pushing paperwork, overwhelming your project team, your project manager having to make manual phone calls. Hey, where's my material at? And then that last piece that I mentioned, to your point about things not getting better anytime soon, since March 2020, prices up 20% across the board, lead times up 50. So these are just major problems.
170 billion? You sure that's not million?
Billion. I mean, we're in a $2 trillion US construction industry,
right.
$10 trillion global construction industry. I mean, that's one of the things is we have big numbers here. And this is bigger than just construction, to your point. Our industry contributes to 11% of global GDP. Yep. So if we can drive more efficiency in a market that large, we're not just helping our industry, we're helping the macro markets too. And that's why it's important that construction does digitize.
Any business or industry that's losing $170 billion, I mean, just screams. I mean, it literally screams opportunity for somebody to come in with better ideas, better solutions. It screams the inefficiencies that we have in our industry, because there isn't another industry out there, at least that I would think of or know of, that would put up with that ever.
No,
somebody would be looking at that.
Yeah, the numbers are one thing. Imagine if your Uber didn't show up 70% of the time, right? Like if the way we fail or don't hit our main goal on projects, imagine if your Uber showed up an hour late every time. Would you still use that service? Probably not, right?
Not at all. I'd get me an electric bike or something.
Right.
All right.
So here, this is just a little example of the numbers, right? So there's so many different places in these workflows that just bleed, like I said. So looking at a large company, we'll just look at the third bullet right there for a mega size company. Yeah. They're wasting about over $720,000 in labor just doing what we said, inefficient processes, signing purchase orders, making manual phone calls. Material pricing. Most companies only get 3 or 4 material quotes. And if they would have got 10 or 15, they would have gotten better numbers. So companies are leaving over $1 million per year on the table just in negotiating better material pricing. Productivity from the field. Again, your foreman in the field has enough to do, let alone having to manage all your materials and call for materials that they need. So losing 26% in productivity by not having these workflows done in an efficient way. And then some intangible things, bad estimates because you're not looking at your data from the last project. I talked about schedule risks because things aren't showing up on time. That feeds into disputes. You didn't get your material here on time. I'm hitting you with liquidated damages. Oh, yeah, well, I'm going to file a lien. And so these things are so important to our projects. And really, they're simple fixes. Let's move away from pen and paper. Let's use an app or software like every other industry that's succeeding is now doing.
100%. And Robert, I just want to point this out to everybody. You're not from outside the industry. You're somebody that has been in the industry for a long time on large projects and have seen, you and your partner, you guys have seen this firsthand. So this is not only coming just from an outside look and crunching data. You were actually working within the industry and decided there has to be a better way. And I think it's super important for everybody out there to understand that and realize that.
Yeah. And, I think that's one of the reasons why we're getting the traction we're getting with construction customers. Like you said, this industry is very unique. People in construction want to work with other people who know construction, right? Even with software, they don't want some Silicon Valley firm that, hey, here's what I think you should do. No, they need people who know where these workflows end up, know how to make them efficient. So yeah, that's one of the things we're always really proud of is that, we're software made by builders for builders. And, I think our customers appreciate that and making their lives that much easier and driving ROI for them.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's go back to the slide deck here. Oh,
so we're big.
A bunch of politicians hanging out.
Yes. So, the world speaks in memes nowadays. And this one's been floating around the internet. It's all the former presidents and politicians in the US. And it's a good example of what our supply chain and management processing construction looks like. It goes, then I told the project manager, the material's on the way. And everyone's laughing their heads off, right? That's what's happening. The project manager goes, hey, you start in 2 weeks. Where's your prefab metal walls that you had built? Yeah, it's on the way. It'll be here in 2 weeks. 2 months later, you just get your delivery ticket that it's actually on the way. So we like to speak in memes. And as sad as this is the state of management and project management and material and construction.
Yeah. So how does DigiBuild put the transparency to all that so that doesn't happen?
Yeah. So, first and foremost, we connect subcontractors with suppliers so they can have more material availability.
Yep.
We automatically reach out to those suppliers every couple of days to get tracking updates. So a subcontractor can come in at any time and say, okay, instead of me having to call or search or waste all my time, I can go right into DigiBuild and see that my material order is in the yard or on the road. Same thing with general contractors and owners who might have to review material. We offer them the ability to check the tracking status of material, but general contractors obviously don't have all the pricing information that suppliers, are sending to subs and whatnot. So we basically give them a way to review and manage their subs and see the status of their schedule and the lead times on any material related to their schedule at any given time. That's a piece that we call predictive scheduling. And basically it takes the schedule and the real-time lead times and make sure that at any given time, contractors know, hey, this is when you need to order this material by or have it fabricated by. We provide that real-time information.
And if I'm sitting at the top floor of my office building and own the company, I can see that as well.
Exactly. So you have downstream visibility into, your projects, your programs, your people. And then we also capture that high-level data and data insights. So we also help companies to improve their processes. We'll tell them things like, hey, if you're building, let's say, 10 extended stay America hotels in Texas, right? We'll take the data from that first project, feed it back to the contractor and say, hey, on these next 9 projects, here's what you can do better. You went over budget on this line item. Let's get that improved in pre-construction. So, that's where our knowledge of what it takes to build is really appreciated by the contractors because we're presenting them with things that directly help their processes and their results.
Perfect.
Had a demo. I'm not sure if you have time. We could skip past that for now. It's up to you guys.
Yeah. I think let's keep rocking and rolling here. We have some questions that are popping up. We're going to get to those questions in just in a few moments. Let's get through our slide decks. I think there's only a couple before here.
Absolutely. So return on investment for these customers, again, we work with both subcontractors and general contractors. Subs are obvious. They're always procuring material. GCs are obviously overseeing that material, but also starting to self-procure more often. So what's the ROI we're offering? Some companies, we save them 25% on their labor hours. We cut that process down significantly. We can save them hundreds of thousands or millions in better material pricing. We reduce those late deliveries and schedule misses by 90%, which is a big thing right now with material availability. And then, like I said, we capture that data to improve their entire material management process going forward. So what does turnkey mean to you? This is where DigiBuild really fits in well with a customer's current stack. When I say turnkey, or let me ask you, Dave, what does turnkey mean to you when you hear it in construction terms? When I think turnkey, I think 2 things on a project.
So for me, when I think turnkey, the way I think today versus how I used to think is, if you're going to hire me, I'm going to design, I'm going to build, I'm going to deliver, and then I'm going to manage that project after you already took ownership of it. That would be turnkey to me in the sense that I know it today. Was that turnkey back in the day? No.
So it's very similar and probably just, a branch of the same family, right? Within the construction process, I see turnkey as kind of the whole enchilada, right? More specifically, I think labor and material, right? And it can be other things. Some people say labor, material, equipment. But basically, when I think turnkey, I think you're doing the whole project. Everything you need is right here.
100%.
So one of the things that's a part of that turnkey is material management. It is debatably number 1 or number 2 most important in our management processes in construction. And so I've heard that material management is the last unconquered workflow, or one of the last unconquered workflows in our industry. And so that's what this slide means. We fit right alongside a customer stack. We have integrations built out with some of the most common construction management platforms, and we're the one that's being utilized for that material management, material procurement. right alongside some of the other great software that you see out on the screen right there.
So you are able to integrate what you have designed into other platforms is what I'm hearing.
Yes, exactly. Now, one of the things some of our customers are doing is switching from their other platforms. We actually have a general construction management software as well that kind of competes with the industry leaders, but that's for probably for round 3 of our duel, Dave. But yeah, we so right now with our supply chain material management, we integrate with some of the other softwares and stacks that are out there.
Yeah, because there's a whole ton new, Robert, ERP solutions that are coming out just for the manufacturing space, from panelization, from modular. It'd be interesting for you guys to probably take a look at that and see how that would integrate into their process and workflow from a paperwork standpoint as well. Love it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, offsite construction versus regular construction, you're still procuring materials, while it looks a little bit different, there's still many of the same processes. So yeah, definitely we'll look into that. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's keep moving here.
Sure.
I think that's it, right? The procurement tool.
Yeah, so this was just an example of DigiProcure. So the tool itself for material management supply chain is called DigiProcure, one of the DigiBuild suite of tools.
Yeah, love it. All right, let's go in here and let's ask a question or two here. We got Henry Mickelberg. How do you maintain multiple stakeholder clients' competitive advantage in a truly transparent CDE permissions?
Yeah, great question, and something that is definitely on the top of mind of many of those other stakeholders, especially because it's usually the general contractor purchasing the software, right? They're usually the root user, as you might call them. So yeah, to your point, Henry. One of the most important things is permissions. So we have permissions built out, project manager versus project executive, or project manager versus project engineer. And then between different stakeholders as well. So a general contractor can go in and review and manage the status of certain material, right? So they can go in and say, okay, has my drywall contractor who starts in 2 weeks ordered their metal and drywall to the site? They can go in there and see the procurement status, but what they can't see is the pricing, kind of that more personal company information between that subcontractor and the supplier. So that's one of the real keys of good software, is just finding that balance, because we definitely need transparency between stakeholders. But to that question's point, you can't have too much. Subcontractors, suppliers kind of build their business on, hey, where can I make an extra buck to make up for that change order that might get delayed? So there's a good balance there. And, again, going back to our roots as builders, we understand who should and shouldn't see things. So yeah, there's permissions built in that are appropriate for standard construction relationships.
Yeah. See, Robert, I live in a world that's in the future where change orders don't even happen, right? That's especially when we're using the technology we have today. It almost blows my mind that our industry still has to deal with the change order, that's going out there. And you're right. We talked to a company not too long ago. They have change order Friday. Every Friday is about writing up change orders. And that's what the staff calls it. It's change order Friday, because they build that in to make extra money. It's just part of the process. And it's legitimate too. They're not making stuff up. It's just, this is what's happening. And I use this all the time from my good friend, Jerry McCaughey, about, NASA, right? Building the space shuttle, the space station. Right? You think they get up there and say, oh, well, we're off about an inch. We're going to have to do a change order and come back. It doesn't happen. It doesn't have to happen.
Exactly. And, if you look at aerospace, that's actually one of the great examples of an efficient supply chain. Yeah. And that's where something construction should really look to. Because to your point, yeah, I mean, again, it just goes back to all the complexity we have to deal with. It should be the same thing with your physical processes and your data. Like we talked about earlier, that assembly line. Why do we have everything happening everywhere? It just makes complexity. So to your point, we can definitely do things in a more efficient manner, similar to how like offsite construction prefab is starting to do things. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Jonathan Chambliss, immutable ledger and smart contract offer less friction between parties. Thank you for tuning in today, Jonathan. Wade Atterbury.
Well, I just want to say hi. Jonathan's always a great supporter, and I wanted to let him know we appreciate him as a thought leader as well.
Well, cool. Jonathan, let everybody know what you do in the chat, man. This show is all about connecting. It's all about putting people in contact with each other. If people know what you do, then they can reach out to you. And you'll be very surprised how many people we're getting 5,000 hours a month. Why? Every 28 days. That's how much our channel is being watched just on YouTube. Wow. That's none of the other 5,000 hours, man. That's, I don't know how people can put up with me that much, but good.
You know what? It's because you have the perfect lighting, the perfect suit. You always look so good when you jump on. It's like, who can't jump on with you?
Oh, look at that. Look out. I'll be covered GQ coming soon.
I was going to say my next interview is going to be on one of these news stations. It's not going to be Dave Cooper Live. It's going to be Vogue or something like that.
Hey, listen, you never know. Life takes us in mysterious ways, right? All right, Wade Atterbury. What's happening, Wade? When data is used in the offsite construction, you can get better results every time you build a new unit. This can even be daily. Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more.
We talk about, which is right now in the field, at least, these companies are wasting 60% of their data. 60% of what's created just goes out the door before the project's even over. It just goes nowhere. So that's a great point. And again, that standardization and consistency allows you to capture that data, reuse it. So that's a great point, Wade.
All right. So he also asked, how does DigiBuild help with labor procurement and retention? That's a good question.
Absolutely. So, one of the things that we're finding, I think there was an Autodesk study that came out. It was something like 50 or 60% of project teams report that they're overwhelmed, right? And not only are they overwhelmed, you're also dealing with construction, which has a high rate of failure and just a very aggressive kind of, state of mind and way that we communicate and deal with people. So that leads to a lot of turnover. It leads to people leaving the company, leaving the industry, checking out in general. So again, when you can create systems that kind of act as a digital project manager for you, it takes a lot of that burden off of these construction teams and allows them to manage the things that matter: schedule, scope, safety, budget, as opposed to, again, teeing up a piece of paperwork or a purchase order. So that kind of goes how we help the labor crunch directly is just making the labor that we have, in the office, somewhat in the field, more effective and more efficient. And, when you have companies like that, not only do you have happier people, you have better project outcomes, and then you also have a company culture where people want to work there. So again, I think these systems are really important. Just a comparison, how your phone auto corrects for you, right? You only have to type half the word, it does the rest. Your construction management software should do similar. It should be smart enough to do things for you where you can come in there and very simply go, okay, yep, order all that material. I need it in 2 weeks. So that's how we help the people of construction and, vis-a-vis the labor crisis.
And what I think is amazing, Robert, when we had you on the show, it's been what, 2 years, year and a half, maybe, give or take?
Yeah, about a year and a half, I'd say. Yeah.
Yep. And then all of a sudden the world really started getting crazy. I mean, just crazier and crazier. And the fact that the solution that you're using, blockchain, is really helping to fill in the gaps and really come prevalent. We're looking at an impending, recession, depression. Something's coming.
For sure.
Where there's smoke, there's fire. So something's coming. I think solutions like yours, I think solutions like offsite, modular manufacturing, they always gain traction during these times because, again, we lose more workforce and we need ways to be better, build it better, digitization, and blockchain's really gaining a lot on this as well. What do you see right now as the future moving forward with your technology?
Yeah, so, blockchain is something that really offers a future of absolute efficiency. So many things on the project management side of what we do could just be described as building trust, right? Even the contract between a GC and a sub. Why can't I just say, hey, trust me, I promise you I'll do it for $10 million. You don't have to sign any paperwork. Well, it's just because we don't trust one another. Even if I'm the nicest guy in the world, there's a intangible need for trust when we do business. So when you can have that natively in the software, the things you can do around automating processes to save money, the things you can do around audits, taking audits to a level never been done before, and data insights are just not being done right now. They can't be done right now. So the way we look at blockchain is kind of the way, if you look at how Tesla looks at their self-driving, it's a major part of the future. It's going to allow them to do things that are above and beyond what's possible right now and are just a major value driver to their end users. Same thing for us with blockchain. Right now, what we're building is software that solves the problems of today in construction, digitization, material management, supply chain. But in the future, when we can use blockchain, that's where we can really change behaviors and just create new lines of business, new lines of cost savings. I'll use this example really quickly here. When I say create new behaviors, what does that mean? Think about Uber, right? 20 years ago, it was insane to get into a car with a stranger. It just didn't make sense. But as cloud computing and as the internet became more prevalent, that allowed you to aggregate data about the driver and create a credit score about that driver. It also allowed you to have real-time GPS tracking to make sure you're safe. So now, new technology has created a new user behavior, rideshare, right? Same thing in construction with trust. When we can all trust one another, certain things like lien waivers can be completely automated. Your audit with your insurance company, completely automated because the insurance company knows you can't change that data on the blockchain. And just better, more accurate data insight. So blockchain, in our opinion, will eventually become the digital foundation that all these construction projects are built on, in the same way that we have a physical foundation that all the rest of the building goes on top of. That's our vision for DigiBuild and blockchain in the future.
And what about the adoption? This is kind of really the last question on this. Like,
sure.
Getting people to want to adopt it, or do you think it's going to be a mix of wanting and having to actually start looking at different solutions to improve? What's your thoughts there?
Yeah, so I think it's a combination. So I think you're seeing more companies wanting to adopt construction to adopt technology in construction because they have to. I was at the Florida Wall and Ceiling Association conference in Florida a couple weeks ago with all drywall, framing, acoustical contractors. And they came up to us and they said, hey, we know we need software. We just don't know anything about it. Right. So even kind of the oldest school, companies are starting to realize that they need to adopt software to survive and thrive. The other piece, I think, will just be as a technology matures and as more use cases and stakeholders start to utilize it, it just becomes less of a barrier. So as we're solving pain around supply chain and material, now it becomes easier to go to our big customers and say, hey, we can do some really big things for you. Let's start using, newer, innovative technology. And then, of course, there's industry groups. We have a standards body that studies solutions in construction, such as blockchain, and really educating the companies to the benefits of what can be done. And to your point, some of the biggest, most innovative companies are built during recessions or during economic downturns. Airbnb, companies like that, even Uber, were built during economic downturns. So there's kind of a forcing function, like you mentioned, when things go bad, companies look to figure out how they can get more efficient, how they can drive, better business lines. And technology always plays a role in that, whether it's 100 years ago, with cars and whatnot, or whether it's today with things like blockchain. So we're definitely seeing it. And at DigiBuild, we're proud to be on the cusp and, on the forefront of driving that innovation in construction.
Yeah, you guys definitely are. So Robert, what haven't we touched on here? What are we missing? Am I missing anything?
How can companies introduce software, I think, is an important one, because we always see companies wanting to introduce that software, but the actual how is such a tough thing because, you've got processes, and in order to disrupt those processes, it's a little bit uncomfortable. That happens. But then you've also got people who are way overwhelmed right now, right?
Yeah.
I always say people want to use software, but introducing software is number 99 on the 100 list of things companies have to do or people have to do right now. So I would say, try and bring in a champion, whether it's an innovation leader or just someone in your organization who is the most comfortable with software. I would say start small and expand from there. Again, talking about all the different use cases that come from something even as small as supply chain and material. Start with just software to procure your material, then move on to actually managing it within a software. I would also encourage companies utilize the multitude of sources that are out there right now. Podcasts or live events like this, like you do, Dave. people need to tune in. You have to learn about that in order to even start the process of introducing software. And then there's a lot of great groups out there right now. You see companies like Built Worlds, the Construction Institute. There's conferences, trade shows. You can learn about this. The first step in introducing software is taking that first step, not just talking about it. So I think that's what companies can do, is just take that first step. And, there's people like myself and you that are ready and waiting to talk to companies about this and help to handhold them into introducing new software.
And it can be incremental steps. It doesn't have to be a complete overhaul of an entire system, is what I'm hearing. And I think that first step is what's so important with what you guys are doing. You can build it in piece by piece.
Exactly. You take a process and then we show you the ROI. Like, yeah, it took you 20 hours of staff time to switch over, but then we just saved you $500,000. It's a pretty easy comparison right there. So that's a great point. Incremental changes, and then look at the data around it and go from there.
Absolutely. We got Greg Ugaldi out there. Dave and Jen, great show. Watching Robert from Italy. Robert, do you know Greg Ugaldi?
I don't know Greg, but hello, Greg. I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn, and I'm Italian myself. Actually looking to do a Europe trip sometime when things slow down for us. So definitely appreciate you, and grazie for watching us.
So Greg's from Connecticut. He's just in Italy, but Greg is just so he probably understands Italian. He's a smart guy. He's the past chair of the NAHB, the top dog, the guy that updates the President of the United States and Secretary of Housing on housing affordability and all those other great things. So he's been a great supporter of the Dave Cooper Live Show. So hope you're having fun over there. Don't drink too much vino and keep yourself out of trouble, Greg. And he'll be on the show again, I believe, next month. He's on once a month. So we just had him on. So good to see you, Greg. Also, just a quick shout out to my good buddy, Mark Bare Naked Willie. That's right. 1 p.m. Friday. Mark and I will have our event for MWBSS on BS Friday. So you want to tune in for there. There's the link. Go there and register and make sure you show up for that show as well. We're always having fun here. And just like Robert said, we need to start talking to one another. We need to start collaborating. We need more Dave Cooper Lives in the world, putting this information out there so we can change and grow as an industry. Being in last place when it comes to optimization, digitization, and healthy living sucks. We don't want to be in last place anymore. We need to move this forward. So, Robert, I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to come on. And listen, man, we're going to watch how you spend that $4 million and watch you grow. And congratulations on all fronts.
Yeah, thanks so much, Dave. Again, like I said, you're a true pioneer in the industry. Things like this are so important towards digitizing. Social media, podcasts, things like that are just as important in the development of the construction market in the digital world as our tools themselves. So props to you and Jennifer. Thank you for having us. And it's always a pleasure. And, we're always willing to come back and talk whatever it is in construction.
Yeah. Well, listen, we love having you here. All right, everybody, listen, I am packing up. I'm heading to Maryland and then possibly to PA. I might do a live stream from a 3D manufacturer who is printing a house out there at their new facility, Black Buffalo. So stay tuned. I might be doing a live show tomorrow just for fun. Not sure yet, depending on the travel. It's like 10 hours of round trip travel and trying to hit all these places, but I got to be in Maryland tonight. So, whoo! All right. What an awesome show, Robert. Always a pleasure having you. Don't go anywhere. And the rest of you that are out there, as always, we appreciate you sharing and liking all of this information. If you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please go there and subscribe. Every little bit helps, and it allows us to keep bringing you amazing people like Robert to the show and having real conversations, unedited, so you can make the best decision for you and your business out there. I'm Dave Cooper, Robert Salvador, CEO of DigiBuilt. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it as always. Looking forward to the next time.
Take care. Right, stay right there. Everybody else, you have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon. It's hump day. Enjoy it. See ya.